Now, earlier, we heard from the House of Commons that it was Prime Minister's questions. Prime Minister Liz Truss faced Labour leader Keir Starmer in as feisty session as ever.
Well, the economic turmoil, the hot topic of the day. And the Prime Minister had a job at hand to reassure, it seems, even her own MPs that she will get the country's finances under control. Our political correspondent Tom Harwood at Westminster for us. Tom, there were some pretty glum-looking faces on the Tory backbenches.
There were indeed. There were moments of really quite difficult elements of that Prime Minister's questions for the Prime Minister. Perhaps the most standout moment was, of course, when the Prime Minister tried to get a line in, a zinger in, against Sir Keir Starmer, saying, "I am not clear." And, of course, the Labour benches erupted with laughter and, indeed, one member of the shadow front bench clapping before Liz Truss could get out the next part of that sentence. I'm not clear what the Leader of the Opposition stands for, but clearly the intended implication of her words was not taken as intended by the opposition benches, a moment of hilarity for them and a moment of glumness for the government benches. However, there were also some moments of clarity. In her very first answer, there was some characteristic bluntness, I suppose, from the Prime Minister. She was asked, will that ban on no-fault evictions continue? There'd been media speculation that it wouldn't. She was asked to confirm if it would, and she said, "I can." Sat back down. 2 words, and with that story was neutered. And I suppose there were some other blunt answers there as well, being asked by the Leader of the Opposition about whether or not spending cuts would come about. Now, she said they wouldn't. I have to say, in our lobby huddle afterwards with the Prime Minister's official spokesman just up behind the House of Commons in the press gallery, we really pressed in on that point. What does that mean? Does it mean the overall level of government spending? Of course, if you're adding in the enormous amount of spending on the energy price cap, you could, of course, see some spending reduction in departments and still have the overall level of government spending rise. It's clearly not a lot of clarity there in what that actually means. But I have to say a commitment from not only the Prime Minister but also the Prime Minister's official spokesperson that the overall level of government spending will indeed go up. It's forecast to go up and that will continue, he said. The other issue, I suppose, when it comes to the overarching strategy of the government is we were expecting what was called, at least in the press, allegedly in the corridors of Number 10 as well, Operation Rolling Thunder. Now, what was this? This was up to 8 different individual pieces of supply-side reform, migration reform, planning reform, childcare reform, all of these different big seismic pro-growth reforms that we were expecting to see from the government before the Chancellor's next fiscal statement, the mid-term fiscal statement, the medium-term fiscal statement that we're now expecting on the 31st of October. Well, the government now say because that fiscal statement has been brought forward, we may not see all 8 of those supply-side reforms before the fiscal statement. Indeed, we may only see 1 or 2 of them before the 31st. We'll have to keep our ears to the ground on that. And then just finally, of course, it wasn't just the Prime Minister's official spokesman that we get to speak to on Wednesdays, but also the Leader of the Opposition's official spokesman. And I have to say, I asked quite a few questions on where the Labour Party stands on all of this stuff, because the Prime Minister, Liz Truss, asked Sir Keir Starmer if he backed or not the energy price freeze, that guarantee it could cost up to £150 billion. I have to say that the Leader of the Opposition spokesman said what the Leader of the Opposition wouldn't. That is, they do back the energy price freeze. And that, of course, is the largest spending commitment in the mini-budget. So going through the 7 clear spending commitments in the mini-budget, the Labour Party back the energy price freeze up to £150 billion. They back the national insurance tax cut, that's £19 billion. They back the basic rate of tax cut, that's £5 billion. In fact, it seems that the only 2 measures of the whole mini-budget that the Labour Party have committed to opposing are the corporation tax measures and the stamp duty measures. So overall, whilst Sir Keir Starmer may say that he wants to reverse that budget, the Labour Party is committing to almost all of it.
Tom, that was quite a tour de force, as ever. Thank you. Thank you for bringing us up to date with everything that's happened in Westminster today.